So like and subscribe if you want to. The Lakers just signed Marc Gasol. And so now the big man situation for them is Montrez, AD, Marc Gasol, and I think that's it. So who's the starting big next to AD? I mean, Montrez gives them more athleticism and scoring inside, whereas Gasol is bigger and better fundamentally on both sides of the floor. He's also a better shooter from three than Montrez, so we'll see what direction they want to go in. Marc is also a better passer than Montrez, and that is maybe the most interesting part of this whole move when you really think about it. I would imagine we're going to see a combination of all of these at some point. I would guess. I mean, AD and Gasol, AD and Montrez, Gasol and Montrez, AD and four perimeter players. I guess it'll just matter on what Frank Vogel ends up preferring, what ends up being good and all that. So I don't know. I'm not really going to try to speculate on who starts between Gasol and Montrez. I think the real question is just how good is Marc Gasol at this point. I mean, in the playoffs, he didn't look too great. He looked a little slow and offensively wasn't too threatening against the Celtics. I think for this Lakers team, the big question is going to be how good is Gasol as a shooter. Of course, on their finals run, Gasol was a pretty legit three-point shooter, 38% on about 4 a game. This previous playoffs, Gasol was not a good shooter, at least from 3. From mid-range, he was a little better on his long twos and stuff. So I think that's the big thing. You know, if Gasol can be a floor spacer for AD and then provide defense on the other end and be a low post scorer and be another rim protector for them, then I think that could be pretty good. I actually think this is a pretty decent answer to the Clippers getting Ibaka. I guess we could see some Gasol Schroeder pick and pops, some Gasol LeBron pick and pops as well. I don't know how often we're really going to see Gasol rolling to the basket from the top of the three-point line after setting a screen for somebody. I figure we could see it sometimes, but I just don't think he has it in him to do that a bunch of times every game at this point. But that's okay. I don't think the Lakers are really expecting that. I think we could see him do some stuff in the post every now and then, probably not against starters, but against second units. Again, that's going to depend on what Frank Vogel's rotations are going to look like. And let's talk about the passing now. I feel like Gasol to AD passes could be a real thing, where LeBron has Gasol set a screen for him, probably around the elbow or so, and then defenses have to care about that for a little bit, and then Gasol or LeBron could lob it up to AD. I mean, it'll depend. We'll have to see how much Gasol is really involved in the offense. I would hope that he's not just put in the corner too much. Granted, I think he will have value simply spacing out to 3. But if the Lakers can find a way to get his passing, then I think that would really unlock a little bit more of their offense. That could also help them again in second units. I mean, I picture, you remember Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum, when Gasol would lob it up to Bynum, or when Blake would lob it up to DeAndre sometimes. I do feel like that could be a bit of a Marc Gasol to AD, Marc Gasol to Montrez sort of a thing. I think the Lakers could try some Gasol at the top of the key and then guys cutting or whatever around that. I mean, there's a fine line. You don't want to do too much of that because then you're taking the ball out of LeBron and AD's hands. We're still going to see the LeBron barrel through guys to the rim. We're still going to see AD post-ups and those 15-foot isolations and stuff. But I do think we could see just a few more moments of Gasol passing to somebody who's cutting to the rim, Gasol setting a screen and then being able to dump it off to somebody or throw it to a shooter in the corner or whatever. And again, if you can combine that with Gasol being a good three-point shooter or at least a good mid-range shooter, then that's pretty good. I mean, Gasol has a lot more going for him offensively than JaVale and Dwight. And then, once again, defensively, I mean, you think about, can Gasol stick with Jokic in the post? I would say so. I think he could do a good job of not getting pushed out of the way on Jokic. Could he keep up with Jokic on the perimeter? That might be a little bit more of a question. We'll have to see how good a shape Gasol is in. If we think about against guys like Yusuf Nurkic, I think Gasol can definitely make a difference. If it's Christian Wood, maybe AD would be better for that sort of thing. I think Gasol could do a good job against Gobert, and actually, when you think about the Lakers matching up with the Jazz, getting a shooting big does create some mismatch problems, because now it's like, where does Gobert defend? I mean, when Gasol's in the game, you don't want Gobert just sticking to him from outside, so we'll have to see. But again, that's going to depend on how threatening from three really is Marc Gasol. If we think about Phoenix, I think Gasol can defend DeAndre Ayton. I mean, we've seen how good Gasol has been at defending Embiid. If we think against the Clippers, I mean, could Gasol survive in the Ibaka at center lineup? They would be pretty spaced out. There's a chance that would be asking Gasol to move around a little too much. But when the Clippers would have Zubats in the game, I think Gasol can definitely defend in that situation. So, yeah, I think this is good. I think the Lakers did a good job of responding to the Clippers getting Ibaka. I think on his best day, which we saw for most of 2 years ago, Marc Gasol, good shooter, good passer, good screen setter, knows where to stand on offense to not be in the way, but also be in the right spot to receive a dump-off pass or whatever. And then defensively, he was a guy who, at this point, not going to make a lot of big highlight plays defensively, but always in the right spot. Very good at not fouling, really good post defender, and just contests every shot well and is a little quicker than you might think he is. But then there was this previous season, which, to be fair, Gasol kind of didn't have a chance to do much this previous season, if we're being honest, because he played in the finals, and then he played in some form of international play, right? So by the time the regular season began, the guy basically had no break at all for a year or so. And so, they got eliminated in round 2 in the bubble. So at that point, he's had hopefully a good amount of time to rest, and he can come back and he can be moving around well. He can get good lift on his jump shot, and he can defend pick and rolls, and the passing is always going to be there. The boxing out is always going to be there. I mean, Gasol doesn't have to jump, and he's immediately one of the more effective team rebounders in the league, even if he's not the one grabbing the board every time. So this is good. It's a good signing. I'm assuming it's not going to cost much. I'm assuming it's not going to be too lengthy of a deal. So yeah, the Lakers, they got themselves a good passer, good shooter, good defender, very smart player, and a guy who, of course, has that experience, which is always nice when you're in a deep playoff series against whoever it may be. So, yeah, the big question is basically, is Marc Gasol just not washed at this point? And I think there's reason to believe he can still be pretty good.